So, all right, we're live. Yay. I'm here with the amazing Beth from Honoring Our Animals. Hi, Beth.
Hey, Lauren, great to be here. Thank you so much for spotlighting pet grief and bringing attention to this very underrepresented type of grief.
And we just talked for about 45 minutes on IG and it was so meaningful. Thank you so much. You've said so many things that like really resonated, different than what my regular therapists have said to me, because I feel like grief therapy is its own like special thing that I didn't even really know existed until my pet died.
Right. Yeah. Well, the constellation of things that happen to us emotionally during grief are really specific. They have their own sort of needs and they need to be nurtured in very specific ways. And, a lot of times if you're in, traditional therapy, not every therapist is, used to talking about grief or supporting grief. And in fact, therapists don't often do training specifically in grief. It's just not part of their core curriculum. So it is something that often needs a little more special attention and also a lot of different types of things to do. A lot of times therapists are trained in one modality, which is excellent, but I bring in all kinds of different, tools and techniques from different traditions and different modalities because we need a lot of different kinds of things to support a grief that is so complex.
Now, I know you actually have a huge audience of people who come to you, and you're doing one of your amazing memorial services this month tonight at 9 p.m. on Eastern time, or
Yes. Yeah. 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific.
and tell everybody about that and where they can see it.
Sure. Well, I invite everybody to come over tonight to Instagram. It'll be on my Instagram live at Honoring Our Animals. And if you didn't get a chance to sign up this month, that's okay. Just follow me on Instagram and you'll see the call for names comes out every month and you can submit for it then. Also in my newsletter, which you can find at any of my info, you find it on my website. That also tells you when the memorial service is coming. And what we do is we get together and I do a service. And so I share some reflections and some thoughts about grief and some ways to sort of honor our beloveds. We also honor people who are experiencing anticipatory grief if their beloveds are in a medical struggle or a challenge. I also share some poetry because I love poetry and find poetry so supportive for grief. And then I read a list of names of everyone who has submitted. And I read the guardian's name and then I read the beloved's name. So if it were you, Lauren, it would say, "We, alongside Lauren, honor George." And then we ring a little bell for him. And it's such a powerful thing to have our beloveds recognized and mourned by a whole room full of people who are listening. And I always say, it doesn't matter how long it's been since your beloved transitioned, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, anyone is welcome. You can come as many times as you want for the service. You can submit as many times as you want. And I've been doing this monthly now, I guess for 3 or 4 years now, over 4 years now. And it's just a beautiful time for my community to be together, hear their beloved honored. And then I always do a Q&A afterward as well. So you can submit questions for that if you just have any topic on your mind or a grief question that I can answer. And I always try to get to all those questions so that people have time with me to, get some feedback about something that's on their mind.
Wow. Now, I told Instagram we're going to talk about this. How did you get into grief counseling? And is it just
Yeah.
something you've always been good at?
Well, no, I don't really think anyone wakes up in the morning being like, I can't wait to become a pet loss grief counselor when I get older. It wasn't on my bingo card. But here's the reason that I got into this. There's my soulmate, Arnie. This is my soul cat. And that's Mr. Handsome Pants himself. and he is the reason that I got into this. So I actually had a long career in film and television. I worked in Hollywood for about 22 years in TV, scripted television, film, scripted film, unscripted television, also in theater a lot, and as a writer and a producer and a development executive. And so I was really an artsy kind of person, always loved mental health and in therapy since I was like 13 years old. So you had an affinity for it, but I did not think that would be my life path at all. But when I got a completely devastating diagnosis for Arnie on a very rare cancer, I didn't think I could survive it. I didn't want to live in a world without him. In his earthside time, he was my rock, he was my anchor, my protector, he's my entire heart. And I just couldn't even imagine a place where he didn't exist. And fortunately, I reached out to my pet loss grief counselor, Marion Silverman, and I started doing anticipatory grief counseling with her. and it was completely transformative. It helped me reframe everything that was happening. It helped me build and deepen my relationship with him. It helped me think about my grief differently. And we had a bit of a miracle with that because Arnie, we tried a kind of experimental chemo thing and it worked and we got a remission on his cancer. And it was like a miracle. It was amazing. And we had all this extra time. And actually, the kind of cancer he had, we didn't think was going to come back. And so, but I actually kept working with Marianne even after the remission because then I was in this whole place of like, well, what if the other shoe drops? And what if something happens to my other cat? You know, and that was really unnerving. And during a regular oncology checkup for Arnie, I had the opportunity to help a woman in the waiting room with us who had just experienced a tragedy with her cat. And she's feeling very guilty. She's feeling very alone. And I had that moment. I mean, it was like a movie where like I kind of felt like something take over my body. And I stood up and I had Arnie with me. This is like the first session I ever did. I had Arnie with me. And I went over to her and I sat down and I took her hand. And I said, "What brings you in today?" And she told me the whole story. And I ended up staying that day with her, helping her, supporting her. And she did need to euthanize her kitty. And when I left there that night, I had this like lightning bolt moment. And I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, this is it. Like, this is it. I know this is what I want to do. But then I was like, I work in Hollywood. That's a nice idea. Maybe I'll do it when I retire as like a side hustle. These were like my string of thoughts because it just didn't, occur to me that I could, do this with my life. And then very unfortunately, a few months later, Arnie was hit with a second cancer. And it was an extremely aggressive cancer. And there was nothing we could do. And I had about 3 days from the time of his very first symptom, figuring out what was going on until we needed to compassionately euthanize him. And he transitioned on the last day of the first trimester of my pregnancy. It was a very difficult time. I felt totally blindsided. And thank goodness I had done all that anticipatory grief work because that really helped. Anticipatory work really helps. And I knew in that moment, I said, okay, I'm not going to wait around. This is not going to be a retirement side hustle. I was like, this is what Arnie and I are now going to do. So I set out, I grieved, I mourned, and then I started my training and all the different trainings and certifications that I did. And I opened my practice and started my Instagram. And now, Arnie and I are on this mission to help empower and educate, support and nurture others who are going through their grief experiences and to show up for them. I always say Arnie showed up for me in the worst of times. Arnie showed up for me when nobody else was showing up for me. And now Arnie and I together, we get to show up for other people who are going through really challenging circumstances with their grief. And it's a way that I honor his legacy. It's a way that we stay in collaboration. Couldn't do it without him. And I'm just very grateful that I have found this mission and that I get to do it with him.
That's amazing. So you went from producing TV and film to now working with people, be able to be okay after this. Do you miss producing or writing or
Well,
doing any development stuff?
I was professionalized very young. I started working professionally as a writer when I was 18 years old. So I had a really long career, compared to a lot of people. And I had a lot of success and I got to do all kinds of cool things and do all the cool LA things and enjoy being in the entertainment industry. And it was really fun. It was really fast paced. And I really enjoyed that part of my life. But in terms of like fulfillment and meaning and mission and purpose, I just feel totally aligned now. And I am grateful for the time I had working in that career, and I have a lot of fun stories I could tell from those days. But I really don't miss it at all because of what I get to do now. And I now I get to write, which I was always a writer. And my first book came out last year. My next book is coming out next year, and I get to make videos on Instagram, so I get to make a little content. I get to talk to people from all over the world, and I did that a lot in my job, in development. I used to work with talent and meet people. So I actually get to use a lot of the skills that I developed there. And I get to use them now to really do something that I believe in so deeply. And it's absolutely fulfilling. So no, I don't really miss it. But I'm grateful that that was where I was in my life. Because if I hadn't been doing that, I might not have met Arnie in the first place. And none of us would be sitting here. So I think it all worked out.
Uh, and how did you meet Arnie?
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's a long, wild story that I tell every year. I usually do a live on Arnie's transition anniversary. It's one way I celebrate him. So I have told the story in full on Instagram several times. I'm not going to tell the whole version here, but it's a wild story. It's a wild story. The shortest version is that I had actually adopted another kitty from the Pasadena Humane Society, where I got my cat Zelda, and I adopted another kitty. And 6 weeks after that cat came home, their guardian came forward, and it's a wild story about how like his guardian figured out that he was with me, and the shelter was like, well, you can, come return the cat. I'm like, I'm not returning the cat, like, he was home with me, we were very bonded. His name was Harley. He was a Siamese. He was gorgeous. And so, but I ended up reuniting them because that was the right thing to do. But I was just in like utter devastation about it. And Pasadena Humane was like, this is really rare. Like, we haven't ever had someone come back after such a long time. And it was really strange how it all worked out. So my veterinarian's office, I knew, had some kittens available, and I, in my head, because I was so upset, I was like, I never want to go to a shelter again because they could take the cat back. I was in this like really kind of nutty headspace. But I remember that my vet's office had kittens, and at the time I was really nervous that that my cat Zelda, who had also adopted, like, I didn't want her to like get used to being in the house without another cat, and I didn't know, so I wanted a kitten. So I went to my veterinarian, and my veterinarian actually picked Arnie out sort of for me. She heard my story and she said, I have a really great cat here. He's so wonderful. I want you to meet him. I want you to take him home. And the truth is, I tell people it was not love at first sight. Arnie was he was the runt of the litter. He was very underweight. He had an older brother who had like chewed off all his whiskers in the wild, and he had like these nose boogers all the time. I was like not that into it, but I was really trusting her that like this was a cool cat. And I was like, all right, I think he should just come home. And of course, we all know what happened. He became the best thing that ever happened to me. But I always like to reassure people it's not always love at first sight with your soul pet. And we're going to normalize that. So I'm very grateful to her for her role in our relationship. And I'm grateful that, even it was so hard having to reunite Harley with his guardian. I felt so sad about it. But it all kind of worked out. And I really do believe the universe brings our beloveds to us in just that right moment at just the right time. And that's part of the real beauty and mystery of these beloveds. We don't get to choose the duration. We don't always like, what happens in the end of their lives, but that miracle of how we come together and how we meet in the first place, to me, is so mind-blowing. And every time I hear a story of how two, souls find each other, I'm thinking, wow, like you and George, like, how in the world did you two find each other? And then you did, right? All the dominoes that had to fall.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's why it's like so hard for me, because I feel like it was such a synchronistic meeting
Yeah.
that now I'm just like, I can't just go to a shelter or like, click on the dog that my friend just sent me that, needs to be fostered. I'm like, I can't do that because I feel like it has to be like George felt like a divine intervention, how he like came to me. So I'm like, how do I get that moment to happen again?
Right, right. Well, I'd start with just being real clear with George that you're hoping that's how it turns out, and just give him the memo, and maybe let him work on it for you, because if you're hoping for that, you got to ask him.
Yeah, no, and I also have right in pinned on my page. I know it looks weird, guys, but it's a short link for Amazon. It's Beth's book. Do you
Okay.
want to tell us a little bit about your book? Ooh.
Okay. Yeah, so my book is a daily reader, meaning it's something that you can open up every day, turn to the date of whatever day it is, and you can have a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of empowerment, some ideas of things to do, things to try to help you, with what you're experiencing. So every entry is like really short. They're tiny little, just something to think about, and then a little action step you can take. And I try to, in the book, talk about, grief symptoms, guilt and anger and jealousy, comparison, sadness, longing, all those big, huge grief symptoms we feel. I also talk a lot about bringing in self-compassion for yourself and kind of that idea of getting to know yourself again, your identity. So many of us just feel like, who am I? And what now and what next and who cares, So talk about that a lot. And then most importantly, I talk about ways to feel connected to your beloved. What are some things you can do, concrete things you can do to include them in your life and feel like you are continuing and evolving this relationship. So I have a lot of different ways to do that, different little things you can do throughout your day. And that is really powerful when you kind of have an action step to do to make your relationship feel more connected and feel like you're really honoring them. So I definitely try to kind of work on those three things the most, and it's really powerful. A lot of people like it, and it has an index. I was saying to you on the IG. So like if you wake up and you just have kind of like an angry day, go to the index where it says anger, and you read all my entries about anger, right? Or if you want to make art projects with your beloved, go to the art entry, right? So definitely trying to give people just a little something each day. And I like that they're very short pieces because you know how it is when you have grief brain. You can't like read a textbook. It's too hard. You got to have short little snippets.
Oh, sorry, the dog I'm watching just jumped up onto the table and I had to
Multiple
I'm
dogs. Yes.
walking my friend's dogs because I didn't want to be alone. So
They're so cute. Who's this one? Who's this one looking at
this
us?
this is Jax and that's Veda, like Darth Vader.
I
So
love it. Veda.
yes.
That's
That
awesome.
is going on. And yeah. When you tell people about your book, is there like a recommended time you say? Do you tell, I know we talked about this on Instagram a little bit. Like, how long does it normally take for people to kind of go through grief?
Well, like we said on Insta, I mean, there's no real timeline. Things change and morph, right? Like we have a lot of stuff in the very beginning, all the cognitive changes and kind of the fog, the grief brain, like all that like brain stuff is so intense in the very beginning. And sometimes we feel kind of frozen or numb or in shock in the beginning, like we can't even believe it happened. A lot of us walk around like a frozen popsicle, like those first few weeks. It's kind of like we just kind of can't believe it, and our brain is trying to protect us by not letting much in. And then over time, a few weeks for a lot of people, like we start to kind of thaw on that, and then things maybe even feel more intense, and we're feeling more sadness, more longing, more anger, more devastation. So there's a lot of different sort of waves and experiences we have as we move through all of this. And certainly for a lot of people, we get those milestones, the month anniversaries, the year anniversary, and those stir things up again. So grief is something that the way I talk about it, we move with it, and it moves with us, right? Like our grief never evaporates, it never disappears. It's always going to be part of us in some way. Our job is try to adjust to it and integrate it into our lives. So, and I said to you before, it depends like what you're struggling with. For people who are struggling with intense self-criticism, intense guilt, intense, replays and flashbacks, intense feelings of identity loss, intense day-to-day adjustment stuff. If you don't get good support around that, it can kind of leave you stuck. It can leave you in a loop. And so you'll meet people who it's been, a few years and they're like, I'm still in really rough shape. So I think it is important if you're struggling to reach out to the people around you who are safe, reach out to your community, reach out to a mental health professional, reach out to a pet loss grief counselor, and bring some support to it, because I hate when people get so stuck in the grief and then they can't feel connected. So I don't think there's any average timeline for grief. For people I work with in my practice, typically we work with people about 3 to 6 months. And by then they feel like they've got a pretty robust toolbox of tools they can use, strategies they can employ, things they can do to help them, with some of these acute tough things that have happened, and also just help them as they keep moving with it. And they feel much more connected to their beloved as a result of the work. So they feel like they're really in connection and collaboration. So for people who work with me, it's, about 3 to 6 months before they're feeling like, okay, like I feel like I can kind of, take a sigh of relief again. And some of that tough stuff I've figured out. But, many people say, well, if you've grieved over a year, or is that bad? Absolutely not. We grieve, we mourn. Some people think year two is harder than year one, because year one, you have a lot of more support around you. Year two, like no one's asking anymore. So there's really no timeline on grief. And I think the idea that there will be a time when the grief is like gone or better, I think that's what gets people really twisted in their heads, because then that time comes and you don't feel better and you think there's something wrong with you. So I think it's really just the idea of adjusting to it, the idea of integrating it and understanding it's going to be there. We're going to miss him forever. I miss Arnie. I wish he were here. I grieve him. I mourn him. I wish he were Earthside. And I understand that can't be so. So what can I do? What can I do to feel close to him? What can I do to feel connected? What can I do to take his gifts, guidance, lessons, and teachings into the world? And that really helps support the grief, of course, that I still feel and that we all feel.
Now, how did you figure out Arnie's like guidance and lessons?
Oh gosh. Well, I thought about them a lot. It was part of in the grief counseling work I was doing, like on the anticipatory side. I spent a lot of time writing about and thinking about what has Arnie taught me in life. What are his some of his top life lessons? What has he shown me about myself? And Arnie showed me many things. He taught me the power of rest. He taught me the power of relaxing. He kind of made a rule with me, like, "Hey, if I am like sprawled on you, you're not going anywhere doing anything. It's rest time." Which is something I really struggled with in life, was like taking a break. He helped me feel worthy. I always struggled to feel like I fit in, to feel accepted, that I could be loved unconditionally. He showed me all of that. He showed me that I am someone who can receive deep, pure love, and that I can give deep, pure love, that I'm worthy of that. And hey, if I can feel it with him, I might be able to feel it with someone else. He also made me laugh. He reminded me of the power of laughter. And it's okay to laugh and be goofy, because he could be so goofy. And all along our relationship, he was reinforcing things about me. He was opening new doors for me. Still does it now. So I spent a lot of time though thinking about his gifts, guidance, lessons, and teachings, and it's something we talk about a lot with my clients in grief counseling, because it's important for us to understand what our beloveds have given us. Many of our beloveds have brought us out into the world and made us more confident in the world. Many of our beloveds have reparented us and given us gifts that maybe we didn't receive growing up. And so it's really powerful to take stock of those things, and to know what they are, so that we can take those values into the world and keep spreading them. Arnie taught me the importance of showing up. Show up when things are hard. And I show up now a lot better for people when things are hard. So I think figuring out what they are is just a matter of taking some time to reflect. Do you have a top George lesson, or one of his lessons that he's taught you?
I guess I don't know that one of my friends, she's a pet communicator, and she told me that George wanted me to not change for anyone, and to
Mhm.
so I thought that was like a really good, I don't know, I don't know about any of that stuff, but it kind of resonated with me. So
Yeah, authenticity. He wants you to be
yeah,
you, live you. Oh, that's
yeah.
beautiful. Way to go, George. Love it. That's great.
Now, I definitely want to touch on anticipatory grief, but I have a few other questions. I see all the pictures in your background. Now, I know a lot of people sell like the stuffed animals that look like your dog,
Yeah.
or, do you recommend any of that stuff, or is there any, like, I guess, brands that you kind of feel like really help?
I mean, again, we talked about this on IG. My mantra is do what feels supportive to you, right? And there are many companies who make the Cuddle Clones is a famous one. I think what you're talking about. Petseas is also doing that. And there's a couple new ones on the market as well. There are people for whom having a stuffed replica, animal of your beloved would find that super supportive. There are other people that would find that totally freaky, right? And so I do not have a position on whether it's a good thing or bad thing. I say, is it a good thing or bad thing for you, right? So I do have clients who have them and love them, find it very supportive. I have clients who have ordered them and find them like unsettling, right? And that's okay, right? In grief, we don't know most of the time what's actually going to feel supportive. That's why we like to try a lot of different things. So if you're drawn to the idea of a cuddle clone, go for it. Some people love jewelry with their beloved on it. I'm wearing my earrings today, say Arnie on them. That's something I like to do. I have there we go. Like this is a pillow my sweet husband got me after Arnie's transition, and this is it's a photograph of Arnie. It's a photograph of Arnie all curled up like a croissant, one of his favorite poses, because I used to sleep with Arnie in the crook of my arm every night, and it was very hard for me to sleep without him there. So my husband found this pillow, had it made, and I would sleep with this every single night, to kind of get that feeling of him there, because our brains like that feeling. So if you're drawn to like pillows, a lot of my clients, like with dogs, their brain always wants them to look like in the back seat of the car or the front seat of the car where their dog would always be. And so a lot of my clients love getting like photo pillows and putting that there so they can kind of see it and say hello. It can be very helpful for our brains and our bodies to have a physical object to connect in with, to touch and to like say hello to. Sometimes that's easier than like saying hello or connecting with sort of an empty space. So, if you are comfortable with, portraits and photos and things, I encourage people to use those as ways to feel connected and to help our brain. If you're used to always seeing your cat or dog waiting for you in the shower, like when you get out of the shower, because I know a lot of us have like shower watchers, right? Put something there, put a little statue, put a pillow, put a photo, and when you're taking your shower and you get out, say, okay, show's over, whatever you want to say, to keep some of those traditions and rituals alive. So those kinds of things can be super supportive, but everybody's different. I don't have that shirt here anymore. Like I have some clothing with Arnie's name on it. I have rocks. I love to paint rocks with his name on it and leave them places like kindness rocks. So I think, a lot of my clients are like, well, what product should I get? And I'm like, well, what are you drawn to? And everybody's so different. A lot of my clients like to use tarot cards and oracle cards as a way of connecting to their beloved. So for some people that feels super supportive, and they like buying decks that remind them of their beloved. Or now with AI, you can get a whole deck made with your beloved's photos, which is like a whole new thing happening. So I think it's ultimately like what feels most supportive to you. What kind of objects do you want to welcome into your home to memorialize your beloved? And to also not feel bad if you get something and you hate it. I want to write that permission slip. I've told the story before, when I got Arnie's Aquamains back, he was aquamated. They sent like the paw print and the nose print. I had ordered all this stuff. I didn't even remember really. I just checked every box in the form because I was in such a state. And I opened this box and it was like wind chimes and candle holders. And I was so like kind of revolted by all of it. I just folded it back up and I put it up in my closet for 3 years. And I didn't want to look at any of it because I hated all of it. And eventually, when the time was right, I felt like, okay, I'm going to open it and go through it. And you know what? I kept some of the things. I liked them, and other things, I did not resonate with them. I didn't like it. And I didn't care that it had his name or paw print on it. I put it in the garbage because it wasn't going to be something I was going to use. And so I've had a lot of clients, like they receive a gift from someone, like a portrait, which can be very supportive for some people, but they don't like the way the artist did it, or, they get something and they go, I can't, get rid of it because it has their name on it. I'm like, yes, you can, because we only want supportive objects around us right now. So I think there's incredible, what do I have? Yeah, this is one of my favorites though. This is Yappy did this, yappy.com. This is called Where's Arnie? It's a Where's Waldo book, but Arnie is in it, like a cat who looks like Arnie. So it has these cool like pictures, and you can find Arnie in the picture. So that's another one I really like. So, whatever floats your boat, do whatever feels supportive. And if you get it and it doesn't feel supportive, dump it.
And what do you think about how people say, oh, like one of my friends, her dog passed and then she had a baby like 6 months later, and she thinks the baby is her dog. Like, I mean, I'd love to believe that. Do you think that's true, or what are your thoughts on that?
That's a spiritual question that's so far above my pay grade. I have no idea how it works at all. But a big phrase I like about all this kind of stuff is I choose to believe, right? Because we have so many things we aren't going to have answers about. We're going to have spiritual questions we aren't going to have answers about. We're going to have, questions about our beloved's life and transition. And I always say, let's go with the least harmful story. I think Megan Devine was the first person I heard say that. I don't know if she invented saying that, but go with the least harmful story, because if for your friend, like that feels supportive and meaningful and loving and wonderful for her, let's go with it, and there's no harm in her thinking that. And, I always say, if it feels supportive, go with it. So, spiritually speaking, I will say, I have heard so many incredible stories of signs and synchronicities and things that seem unbelievable when it comes to, our beloveds, making things happen. And so I believe, like when my clients tell me stories, I believe them. I believe that anything is possible because, like I said earlier, how do any of us find each other in the first place? There has to be something divine going on with that, right? Like it can't be an accident. So, I always say to people about their spiritual beliefs, and I'm really interested in supporting people's spiritual beliefs. Like if your spiritual belief is that, my kid is reincarnated from my beloved, or it's my beloved in another form, go with that, Well, whatever feels supportive. We are hurting so much when we grieve. Anything we find that brings us an ounce of ease or comfort or calm, let's go with it.
Now, I really wanted to touch on the anticipatory grief subject
Mhm.
because, I mean, I wish I would have known what that feeling was when I had George for 17 years and I was worried about him all the time. Like, it
Uh,
is real. Can you explain it to everybody? Because I had no idea before he died, that was a thing.
I know people don't know there's a name for it, and there is a name called anticipatory grief. People also don't know that it's a real grief, like it is its own grief, and actually in some ways it's even harder in certain ways than post loss grief, which might sound surprising for some people, because not only do you have all the emotions that you have in post loss grief, like anger and worry and feelings of abandonment and regret, all those things, but you also have this layer of uncertainty because you don't know what's going to happen next with your beloved. You don't know when things might change. You don't know how bad it's going to be. You don't know what the circumstances will be. You don't know if you're going to have to make a euthanasia decision. You don't know if the next treatment you try will be successful or not. You don't know if you should spend so much money and on the next treatment. And the level of uncertainty and worry and dread is so intense. And yet at the same time, you're advocating for your beloved and you're trying to find new ways to support them, whatever the diagnosis is. And it's draining. It is emotionally really draining. It's financially often very draining. It's socially very hard on us. A lot of us like shut down and we stop seeing our community support because we're doing meds, or we want to be home. We want to have the time. And the struggle, trying to be present with your beloved when all this is going on, most of the time we're like ruminating or future tripping and we can't stay present. And then we feel guilty about that. Like, oh, I'm supposed to be enjoying this time and I don't know how to do it. So it's really hard. And especially for anybody who's, contemplating a euthanasia decision, that's just a whole other layer that is so hard. So anticipatory grief is the whole constellation of emotions that come up when you have an awareness that there will be a transition occurring. And I was thinking about that. I was talking about anticipatory grief in my new book I'm writing, and I learned that the term anticipatory grief wasn't coined until 1944, I think it was. And that also just sort of shocked me because I was like, man, so recent. It's so recent. Also, there's another layer of another kind of grief that comes in with anticipatory sometimes, and it's called ambiguous grief. Have you ever heard of that? Okay.
No, what is
So
that?
this is big. This is big because again, I like to name things. If we name them, we have a little more power about what's going on. So ambiguous grief, it has two definitions. Now, one definition doesn't apply here. One definition of ambiguous loss is like when we don't know what happened to our beloved. For example, if, we leave the gate open and our dog goes missing, or we have a natural disaster and we can't find our pets afterward. That's one definition. But the other definition is like when your beloved is still earthside, but they're not quite themselves anymore. Now, in humans, we would see that with something like dementia, cognitive decline, or sometimes like Parkinson's disease, even addiction. They're here, but not here in certain ways. And we experience that with our animals as well. The dog that used to love to hike 4 miles a day who can barely get around the block because of hips, mobility, or, any beloved who's in a cancer struggle or kidney struggle who can't do a lot of the same things, or any beloved with cognitive decline where, they don't know you anymore. They have more anxiety than before. So sometimes we have all the anticipatory grief along with ambiguous grief, which was coined by Dr. Pauline Boss. Amazing. And that is a really tough, situation. So the anticipatory grief is really rough. It's real. And if you are experiencing it now, it is absolutely 100% real, and it's grief, and we want to support it. One of the biggest problems with anticipatory grief is that we don't support ourselves. It's our self-care that's the first thing to go, our mental health, because we're so consumed with what's happening. And so oftentimes we don't make any nurturing to ourselves about the fact that we are in this grief. And if we do, it can really help our experience, because it's a little bit like we got to put on our own oxygen mask before assisting others. But that gets really lost in anticipatory grief, of course, because we're all really devastated.
And any advice for somebody, I guess, who's going through anticipatory grief right now, or
Well, number one, recognize you're in it. It's really powerful, recognize like, hey, like what I'm experiencing is profound grief and I need support. We have to support it, right? If you don't support it, You are risking like burnout from all the caregiving fatigue, compassion fatigue. And we don't want that because we don't want you getting to a place that it's going to be real hard for you to come back from. So, what does support look like for you? It's different for everybody, right? But I really recommend leaning on your community, asking for help, asking for what you need. Even if you just need someone to come over and sit with your dog or your cat or your ferret while you take a walk around the block or grab a shower. It's okay to have someone else on guard. Take breaks when you can. This is the hardest thing for people. They don't want to go away for long periods of time. They don't want to go on a vacation. Try to still work in as long chunks of time breaks so that your body can reset, so that your mind can reset, so that you can blow off some steam, you know? And one of the big things I really encourage people in anticipatory grief is normalcy. Our beloveds are really attuned to when things get kind of out of sync and out of whack. You know how it is? Like, George knew, like when you were, like behaving differently. So one of the best things we can do for our beloveds is we can be normal around them and we can keep them in their routine. When we start helicoptering our beloveds and like checking to make sure they're breathing all the time, it kind of freaks them out. And we got to remember this from dog or cat or guinea pig POV. They are not thinking, oh, I have a terminal diagnosis and I'm going to maybe have 3 to 6 months, right? They're not thinking about that. They're right here, right now. They love you. They want treats. They want snacks. They want cuddle time. They want to play, right? They are not thinking like that. They do not have human POV. And what the most helpful thing is to center our beloveds in their experience. This is their end of life story. And you get to show up and support them in it. There's a lot of people I work with that don't get any notice. They don't have any time. Things happen very fast. If you are in anticipatory grief, you have some time. So what do you get to do? You get to show up for them. You get to step up and walk this road with them. You get to help support them in this very tender time of their lives. And you're going to make choices that are going to give them agency and dignity. And you're going to try to give them the best darn end of life you possibly can. But center them in this and center it through their eyes. And if you go out and have dinner with friends and blow off some steam, they're not sitting there holding that against you. And they are not keeping track of that time. Animals have a very different sense of time than we do. And they are not worried about the things that you are worried about. So helping yourself get back into the present moment, a lot of people like to do that through grounding, through breath work, through meditation, whatever you need to do to get grounded to the right here, right now. And remind yourself right here, right now, nothing bad is happening between me and my beloved. Right here, right now, we are connected, we are present, we are together. Right here, right now, we're loving each other hard. Right here, right now, we're having some good cuddle times, and centering their experience and showing up with that normalcy is the best thing you can do for them and for you.
Wow, well, there's so many more things we can talk about. Unfortunately, I have to wrap this up. I could talk to you for hours just because I really had no idea how hard it would be before I lost George. And then it's really hard, and you were just so knowledgeable. Like, how, just quick question, how long did it take you to like learn all this stuff, or were you
Well,
always just kind of knowing about it?
Well, I'm still learning. I mean, that's a wonderful thing about my job. I encounter all kinds of different situations every day. I learn from every story of every beloved I hear and every client I hear. And, I'm doing this a long time. I think I've worked personally with over 1,000 clients now. So I
Wow.
do know a lot about this. I know a lot about what it's like for people. And there's a lot of commonalities and there's a lot of things we all experience. And we don't realize that, until, I'm sitting with something like, is it so weird that I'm picking off all the individual hairs off the couch and saving them in a Ziploc? I'm like, you and everybody else I work with, and that is so comforting for people to realize, okay, like I'm not alone. And they know that I know, because I've been sitting with a lot of people. So I'm continually learning, though. I'm continually growing, and I'm always, expanding my skill set and expanding my knowledge base, because I want to be able to show up with the most current thinking and with new tools. So I enjoy that part very much, learning from books and mentors and courses, and also from my clients, and most importantly from their beloveds, because the things I have learned from all the incredible beloveds, resilience and kindness and joy, so many things, because our beloveds are truly the most wonderful amazing beings. And people always say, "Oh, I know everyone says I had the best dog ever," and I'm like, "And every single one of you was right. You know, if I die, I want to come back as the guardian of any of my clients, or as the animal. Sorry, I want any of my clients as my guardian because they take the best care of their beloveds and they love them so much. So it's a real joy to be around so much love. It's tough, it's grief, it's painful, but to hear these love stories day in and day out, these sacred relationships, nothing better.
That's amazing. I love that. Now, where can people find you on social media? And if they want to book a therapy session, where can
Yeah.
they do that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's obviously my website, which is honoringouranimals.com. You can come on over there and kind of see what we're all about. You can book a consultation. I do free consultations with anyone who wants to talk about if we're right for you. Instagram is the place where I spend the most time, so feel free to come on over to Instagram and give me a follow. That way, you can participate in the memorial service. On my Instagram bio, I have links to my newsletter. I have a weekly newsletter that comes out as well. So if you want just a little like weekly dose of inspiration, I've got that for you. And obviously, my book is available everywhere books are sold. So you can find me any one of those ways, but feel free to shoot me an email or come to a consultation. I'd love to talk to you to just see, a lot of people feel stuck, right? They feel stuck when they're grieving. And sometimes just some work around this can really release us and just open up that path for connection and that ongoing love story.
Well, thank you so much, Beth. Guys, definitely join her live tonight at, is it 9 p.m. EST?
9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. Yeah.
Yes, it's on Instagram at Honoring Our Animals. Make sure you follow her everywhere. She makes amazing content and she's just super nice. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, George.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.